Okay, we are recording once again.
There we are. I'm back from the makeup booth.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
Is distance like this okay?
Yes, yeah, that's good. That's perfect. Yeah. I think like as long as it's like about a fist away, should be all right.
All right.
Okay. Well, I don't know how much time we have. Do you got a good sense of when you got to go?
No idea actually.
Okay. Hopefully.
I think whenever I'm needed, I will. I think it's like I'm just gonna check the schedule once more. So you guys have a call time in 1:15, but that's obviously you already here.
I'm already here. Head of the game.
But yeah, we are on air at like 3:30, so that's in like 40 minutes. So let's.
40 minutes.
We have like approximately maybe like half an hour, 25 minutes ish.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, you've got 5 majors. So that's pretty awesome, and that's pretty special because I think in esports there's not many. To be honest, I find it hard to even come up with an achievement that's comparable to that. And I think for me, one of the things that's most special is that people struggle once they win to continue to win, especially big tournaments over time when everybody's gunning for you. And there's certainly got to be a lot of mindset shifts and a culture difference that is unique to teams that can do that. So I want to start there. When you guys started with Astralis, I think a lot of people probably don't even realize that your team was labeled chokers for quite a while. So you kind of go from like one extreme to the other. So run me through what were the changes or what you think are the most important aspects of Astralis and how it came to be that allowed you guys to be able to win back-to-back like that.
I think obviously the most important aspect in all that was just like we had to have more time and more experience, and you can only get that much experience by going on stage and playing, and then you will eventually get to a point where you've tried enough situations and been in the high pressure situations enough that you know how to get yourself out of it. But at the same time, it's also about like figuring out and trying to analyze like what is the issues that we have. Is it because of the communication? Is it because people stress out in terms of their own individual mistakes? So I think that like there's a lot to it, but obviously we just needed more time and more experience, and that's also what I think we see nowadays with some teams that seem to be doing really good in a studio environment like we have here. Because there's like the pressure is just so much different from sitting on a big stage where there's like other aspects, like environmental aspect that comes into play, and also like the whole how to control your nerves. Whereas it's a lot easier when you're sitting in an environment like this. So I think that is why I think it took time for us. And then once you get over that hurdle, which we also seen with other teams, like once they get over it, they also just like get like a boost of confidence. Like guys, we actually made it. Like now we can do it. And then I think it's all about just trying to continue in a development path so you don't fall back into that same kind of stress that, oh my God, now we cannot perform and now we cannot go back and we don't want to fall back into the same hurdle that we've already been in. And for the Astralis team, as you talked about the whole idea about winning, like, winning once you reach like your goal, like what's the next step? I think that is what we worried a lot with back in the days, that when we set ourselves a goal, and then we achieved that one. Instead of just saying, okay, now we just go with the flow, we set like a new goal. We kept pushing the goal to become something bigger. And then eventually we made the goal that we wanted to become the greatest team of all time. And then we were like, what now? What else can we do like to actually cement ourselves as this team, But yeah, it was definitely a journey that took a lot of time, but also requires a little bit of luck, I'd say. I mean, like, yeah, we were lucky and we had the best players that given time in our positions, alongside a really good staff. So I think a lot of things aligned for us to make that thing happen.
And you didn't always have the same players, obviously, for most of the majors you did, but you did have the same coach. And so Zonic has been instrumental in the success, at least from the outside. Of course, he's been right there behind you guys. And what kind of style of leadership does Zonic bring to the team, and how does he help to create a culture of success and to help you guys set the goals, help you guys stick to the goals, and have that identity that you guys had to be able to win so much?
I think Zonic has like a passion, obviously, for the game. I think that's very much needed to become a coach like him, and he's also good in terms of like tactical depth, but also he's a very nice human being outside, which also brings a lot of qualities. I think he was very good at understanding when to push his players and when to give them some leash because they were either struggling or like he could feel it if it was because they were slacking or it was because they were actually working their asses off to get their shit together. And then he was really good at comforting everyone. So I think he had like a lot of good qualities. And in the beginning, when he was our coach in Astralis, it sometimes more felt like we were just like 6 friends traveling around the world playing Counter-Strike. It wasn't as strict as it is nowadays. We didn't have like super dead serious conversations. Obviously, we were also winning a lot of titles, so it was just like we were just having fun. He was like a friend. I think the first step we took in the direction of become more professional is that he actually got his own hotel room. In the beginning we would just share like the same hotel room, and we wanted to create this illusion that we were like the professional teams, that you didn't mix players and staff in that sense. I think that was the first step. But he's always been incredibly good at pushing his players in the right direction, but also he's like a hype coach. Like he's good at motivating people, but also taking a step back and be on a like more humane level and knowing how to solve issues, and never been afraid of asking that critical question to the entire team, but also to some individuals, that why are you not performing? Is it because of him or because of X and Y, Z? So he kind of knew, and I think that what he learned from our sports psychologist as well, Lars, is that we talk a lot about the things that, like he used this, what is the word? Analcolomy. What is the one that, like, if you, Kerrigan did it yesterday, with like he pictures FaZe Clan as a car.
Oh, just like a visualization?
Something like that, but there's like a specific word, analogy,
analogy?
Analogy, I think.
Analogy, analogous?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Okay.
that was very difficult. Where, you picture yourselves like what's above the table is what everyone knows, everyone can relate to, and everyone is like buying into, and then there's all the stuff under the table. That is the thing that I might feel towards another player, but I'm too afraid of telling him the way he's playing or the way he reacts or whatever it could be. We worked a lot with this whole thing that we need to bring stuff up to the surface so people can actually relate and say things to each other. And he has been really good at that. He could feel if there was like an issue within the team, and he would pull everyone together and say, guys, is there anything we need to like, it's like called like empty the backpack. It was like where everyone could go in freely and have their time to speak openly about issues they had. And people would just sit there and listen, buy into it, and then we would actually discuss about it. So it's like a space where people could, just empty the backpack. Yeah,
I mean, it seems like... Do you think that Lars was the first person to sort of bring that into the consciousness of Counter-Strike? Because I know in esports now, it's over the last few years, it's so many top teams have similar practices to this. Was that? Do you think the origin of that? Because I think it's if I think back, I feel like you guys were the first to set a lot of practices like this.
I believe so. I mean, I'm not sure if the term was brought in by Lars solely, but it might have been there before. But I don't think it's ever been practiced the way that we have done it. And as you mentioned, now a lot of teams are doing it, obviously, because they have adapted and picked it up from other teams. And I think it's become like a very instrumental thing of running an esports team now, that you have an esports and sports psychologist that will be able to bring all these practice into the team to like keep developing. And of course, for us back then, it was also brand new, and I had multiple times I had this thought, like, why is some guy coming to tell me how I feel about, why does that make me a better Counter-Strike player? And it's something you will grow with. And nowadays, with all the young talent people coming in, I think it's more like it's part of the game now. Like back in the days, it was something that was picked up because they thought that it's needed, because that's how it is in traditional sports. Nowadays, it's a lot more like introduced into teams, and it's just like kind of the ecosystem. So overall, I think that he might have brought it up, but it might have been there before, but it was never really used in the way it was supposed to be used.
Yeah, it's super interesting, because it's definitely one of those things from in rugby and like other professional sports. It's something that's been used for a long time. So it's cool to see those things coming across, and you guys are able to really capitalize. And you're talking about a team practice there. That's a sports psychology practice. But again, I'm mindful of the time. I could go super deep on specific topics. Want to hit a few things. So in terms of individual performance, obviously, it's a team, so it's a collective, but at the same time, there's individuals. There's both things happening at the same time, and you're in that period, as we mentioned before, where you experience a slump as a team. But as a player, you've had a really long career and a very successful one. And I don't think there's any player that has never had a period where they've struggled with their own performance. So what are the biggest challenges for you when you've experienced, maybe if not a slump, but the greatest challenges in your own performance?
I think I've always been my worst enemy, and I think that is something that goes like, it doesn't only reflect my professional career, but it's also like me as a person. That's just one of my personal traits. I always criticize myself, and I believe like everyone is asking me how you feel like it's going. As for doing the thing we're doing now at BLAST, I'm thinking, I think it's going, it's okay, not the best, but not the greatest, like it's very average, right? I always criticize myself, and maybe my lack of I wouldn't say like my self-esteem, but it's more like the lack of trust in myself sometimes has just been my biggest issue. Because when I believe in myself, and I had my biggest upswings in Counter-Strike is when I've just felt like I had everything under control. The duel I would take, I would win. But at the same time, if I end up in a position where I feel like I've not been playing well, I'm not contributing to the team, I get frustrated. I also have like a temper that actually also has hindered me sometimes. that has been my biggest issue. I think that I have not believed in myself, and Counter-Strike is a game where you just you need to believe in yourself. Like it's so mental, and it's so much about confidence that has hindered me a lot. And sometimes I've been actually quite surprised that I've made it this far with some of the mental, I wouldn't say mental problems I've had, but like the mental hindrances I've had sometimes going into or at least having periods where I've not feel like been contributing.
So is it something that you would take upon yourself to solve, or were you going to LAST and sort of getting assistance? And if so, kind of what did that process look like?
I think it was more about the first step I would take was mainly to just accept the situation as it was. I was not. Sometimes I always try to like picture myself like looking for this key to find like consistent performance and playing well, and sometimes this whole search for the key to success is actually what keeps you back. Like you're constantly thinking. Then you have one good game, and then you think, okay, what did I have for breakfast? What did I do prior to the game? How was my monitor settings? Like everything's like that, And then you constantly keep changing until that thing stops working, and then you start to search for something new, and it actually sometimes ends up taking away some of your focus from what is actually your issues, right? And that is something I obviously worked on with my sports psychologist, and all the things that I've gone through in my career is it's sometimes it's better to take like a step back from the whole thing. It sounds weird not saying that you then like stop caring, because of course you care, but the chase for the key has always been like, I think that is sometimes what keeps people back.
It makes a lot of sense. It's one of the, I always have said to people that one of the most like freeing things to understand about your performance is that your performance has like a range. So and you can be anywhere there in the day, and it's better to be curious about it than to be like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Why can't I be? I've been there before, so why am I like here right now? So exactly. Just like, oh, what's going on when I'm here right now? Let's explore this area and see what's happening.
And sometimes it's also like when you want something, like you want to play better, or you want to win a given tournament, or you want to achieve something, like the more you want it, can sometimes also be like you want it too much, and something like, because that means that your emotions will eventually come to a point where that the emotions will actually take over instead of like the practical stuff, the things you can actually handle yourself. That is also something that we work with. Like we want to achieve this, we want it, but we need to be careful not wanting it too much. And it's super hard sometimes to find that balance where you still want it, but you also need to like be a little bit more casual about it and take a step. Because then if you still have that kind of balance, you will eventually get there. If you do enough.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. It's funny actually, because I haven't thought about the wanting it so much, but it's so similar to any situations where you're in a pressured scenario where your brain kind of perceives stuff as a threat, like, different environment, everything's, this desk height, it's a bit different than I'm used to, and your brain's like, whoop, it's like zapping you to there, and now you feel your hand, and like, it's like your brain's looking for these distractions, and you kind of can't stay focused on what you want to do, because, again, like, usually it's for people that's like losing, like when there's, you see the 12 rounds on the board, if you make one mistake, you're going to lose the game. That level of threat, I feel like it's so hard to not have that disrupt your thought process and allow you to just play calmly, and so that's a very difficult one. I mean, we saw FaZe in that position yesterday, and you can, they're a team that's so experienced that I think they've been exposed at least to that experience a lot, that it's a little bit easier to handle, but it's still a very difficult one. And the wanting it, that sounds like a similar thing where it's like, it means so much to you. It's like your brain cannot, like, you're so close. Yeah. It's like the classic thing when you're winning a game that maybe you don't expect to, like a final, and you're like, we're doing it. Yeah, the classic thing, a team that hasn't done it before, like, exactly. Oh, I'm doing it. Yeah, and then you start to lose.
Like the closer you get to victory, the more you actually start thinking about what you're doing, and that is when you actually start losing. It's kind of crazy that your brain sometimes works like that, because you start putting effort and you start thinking, what if, the what ifs, like, that is also something that I have been working a lot with.
It's so funny because it feels so complicated sometimes, but it's also so simple. It's like
simple, but it's so hard to control. Staying in control and actually having the right thought process. Because I've been in multiple occasions where I've been thinking like, I'm playing like really good right now. I just gotta keep going like this, and then start things going downhill because I start putting like my focus just shifts away from the things that I've already been doing. So it can be super complex.
It's so funny. I mean, this is a topic I think about a lot, just because when you're in the zone, everyone's kind of familiar with that feeling. It's like, well, are you thinking about anything else other than the game? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not. Like, you're just like totally dialed into the game, and there's no distractions. Your all your cognitive energy is on that one task, and so you want to be there all the time. But sometimes it's easier said than done to get there. So, with that said, what do you think are important? What do you think are the most important things for a team to be successful? Like we've got a few teams here at this tournament that all want to be the best in the world. Right now, Vitality obviously looking like the best team in the world, and looking to cement their era. But they could fall down. Like they're right before the major. This is kind of the time when it could happen.
Exactly.
So having been someone that's been in these spots before, what do you think makes the difference for these different teams?
I think that, first of all, what creates a really successful team is that you need to make sure that the roles are set and that everyone is on the same page. That is like the fundamentals. You need to find people that are aligned in the way that you approach the game, that everyone feel like, okay, what I'm doing inside the game actually makes sense for my teammate and also for my in-game leader, that you follow the path of the protocols and the things that you have agreed on. Because if you start going in different direction, my action might, influence the action that my teammate needs to do, and what I'm doing is, it could be like a butterfly effect, right? Everything just spiral a bit out of control. And then obviously having the roles is a great example. Was when we picked up matches for our team when he was replacing Kiab. I had a role clash with Kiab for multiple years, but it was something that we would, we just trying to work around. I had to pick up some different position. They worked okay-ish, but it was never really in the likes that I wanted. So, and that is what I also believe that is one of the reasons why Vitality is so good now. They had everything set in stone with Apex and Flamesy being like this sheer aggression that goes out and creates a space, and you can see that they are just thriving in that because that is what they're good at. That's what they're in the team for. And then you have Saiwu, who just does everything good, obviously, but then also alongside Robs in this kind of duo where they are just really good at closing out rounds. They're good at playing the 3v3 situations and whatnot, and that just puts them every time like. For all the stages of the game, in the beginning of the round, it could be like everyone's contributing, but then Flames and Epic goes out and get the entries, and and then Saiwu and Robs will close out the rounds. At every stage of the game, throughout the round, they will have people thriving in what they are actually good at. And that is if I was, that's why me as an introvert, if I was put in a position where I had to go out and clutch or play like a certain scenario like correct, that's not my strength. That's not how people utilize me the best, right? So I think that is one of the cases for how you make a team work, and sure, Vitality is coming close to the major, and everyone has their eyes on them right now, and they need one more game to break this whole streak, and they are obviously the clear favorite for the major, and sometimes you need to also live up to the expectations of being the favorite, and I think Vitality is doing that really good right now. But then again, I can also feel that they are. I wouldn't say they're starting to struggle, but you can see that they're not as dominant as they were maybe like 2 tournaments ago. Maybe they're also a bit tired, and people are starting to figure them out. And it's always so hard to be like the main guy that you want to you are set in a position, and then you have people trying to catch up to you. It is for Vitality right now. They feel like what we're doing, we're working. The strategies and the things we have, they are working. It takes time for them to get to a point where they need to realize that okay, people have actually caught up now. What is it we actually have to do? What do we have to change? They can't get the data because they're winning, so they feel like it's working. But when they start losing, they will get to a point where they feel like they need to, change something. So that's the mind games of it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'm just going to quickly check how much time we have. Okay, 18 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, we've been going for like too long. All right, so I have time for a couple more questions. I think we said 25 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, I think if we can finish it like a quarter past, so I can go bathroom and everything before the stage.
Awesome. Wait, how long until that?
It's like 10, 12
minutes. Okay, cool.
All right, well, like 10 minutes from now.
All right, okay, perfect. Okay, nice. All right. Well, so it seems like FaZe right now is a team that might be having role issues, given that you've been talking about that. Is that your general assessment? It seems like the most obvious thing right now. Obviously, they're getting bad results, and that can kind of over time. It's kind of like trauma. I feel like everyone's sustaining the trauma, like loss, and then suddenly it becomes okay. Maybe even if they fix the roles, they'll be in a spot where if it's too late, the team will have to solve confidence issues because they've been losing too much. So how do you feel about like where FaZe is at right now?
Obviously, the whole fact of losing Robs has impacted FaZe more than anyone could think of, especially themselves, I think. But at the same time, I'm also in a position where I believe that changing one player or losing one player would not do this much damage to a team. I know they still have good players, and they picked up Elise, a really good player as well. I think for FaZe Clan, it's obviously, I think it's a confidence issue by far. I mean, again, and I feel like there's also maybe like some internal issues that we do not know of. It seems like there's there could be some struggle between players, or at least the way that they want to play, that has shifted people into playing differently from what their strength is. And I'm not sure if it's like the leadership of Karrigan, or if it's Elise who's brought something to the table that this is how I want to function as a player. Because sometimes when you bring in a player that also has like such a main role in the team as Elise has now, the way that he's playing, as I mentioned before, like it might change the way that how his teammates is approaching the round, because I get Rob's mate used to do this, and that is what Frozen is used to, and that is what Rain is used to. Now they need to do something differently, and then they're thinking like, why can't we just do like we did in the old days? But that doesn't work for the way that Rob's played, and like that is like it can be like it can go on so many levels, right? And there's so many issues to it that you need to figure out, and that can be. Who is that to blame? I don't think that there's like one specific guy on the team right now you can blame, because it just doesn't function. It just like it reminds me a little bit of how it was for me when I joined Falcons at the beginning. Like we had role issues, but at the same time we also had an issue in terms of how Zonic wanted to approach the game and how Snobby wanted to approach the game. You know, and that just creates chaos that you constantly try and go in different direction. Like then we try this, that didn't work. We try this, then didn't work. This works a little bit. Then it starts failing. We go back to what we used to. It's like this constant limbo of trying to get things to work, and I think that's what FaZe is also trying to figure out right now. You know, they've been having poor results, and you know they go home and they work on something, and then they hope that when they go into the tournament that this is going to work. When it doesn't, they go back to trying a new thing. You know, it's just constant like directional shift that will eventually be very like unprogressive for them. But you know, I still have my faith in that Kerrigan can turn it around. You know, I still believe that they maybe need to make a single or double, like maybe change the team. I think the core can work, and then also I just think like the fire within FaZe is just like slowly burning out. You know, I think also we have a very big like generational shift in players coming into this game now, and I can feel it on myself. You know, I'm 32, I have 2 kids. You know, I've been playing for years. You know, but this fire within me of wanting to go out and prove that I am a guy that is capable of being the best and working with the best and everything it's just not the same anymore, you know. And I think that is something you can never like you can never force that out. It's like a thing that has to come from your heart that you want this. And I just don't think that FaZe Clan wants it enough. Yeah, they want it, but they don't want it the same way that the likes of Moneysea maybe wants to go out and win a major. You know, like it's so complex sometimes.
Yeah, it's really hard. And it's funny because obviously if you ask any of these players, do you want to win? Obviously they're going to say yes, but you can't. It's impossible for us to really see, like you say, inside people's hearts.
It's like emotions, it's you know, when I came into the game the first time, you know, I remember that I was looking at when Zonic was playing 1.6 back in MTW, and I said to myself watching it at home, I was like, I want to do that as well. I want to be part of that. I want to become a top player. You know, I'm obviously coming like in having a career which I've had now. I never dreamt of that, obviously, but the whole idea that I wanted to make a name for myself, I wanted this so much, and that is what the young players they have right now, you know, because maybe they've been grinding for the last couple of years. They've been watching us play the big tournaments that, you know, when they look at the big stages, like, I want to go there too, you know. That fire can also influence the team so much. That is why I think that if FaZe could pick up like a young prospect that is like, sure, he might not be like completely ready for tier 1, but he could be like molded into something that actually works for them, and he can spread that excitement of being on the team into the rest of the team. You bring that fire and joy back of the game. I think that is maybe what they need.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. So last couple of minutes. There's so many questions I could ask you, but
we can do an episode 2 at one point.
Nice.
It could be episode 1.
Okay, it's on the previous on camera. So okay, awesome. So on that topic, I guess in 2 minutes, what do you think is the main difference in terms of the new generation of players coming up compared to before? Obviously, the default expectation is everybody's better these days. It's always going to be the case. People get better over time, but the game has also changed as well. Like, what do you think is the main difference? And obviously, you're in a position where you're looking at these players, and like, if I come back, I do have to compete against it. So, what's your sense as to how the younger generation is different than before?
But they obviously they just play in a more competitive environment, and then there's also people like they demand more of them as well, and they also know that if they want to make the best, you know, they also need to invest so much more time than what you did maybe 10 years ago. And then apart from that, there's like so much more educational content out there. I think that's also something. Also like the whole how you analyze matches. If you need to learn how to play a specific map, then you could just go on some kind of analyze tool and then look at how Falcons or Spirit or Vitality is doing, and then you just straight up copy it. And then obviously, it takes more than just copying things, but it is so much easier available for you to actually get in and get the data you need to become better. Apart from that, then obviously I also just think that the way that esports has evolved throughout the years, it has become more prestigious and people are making like a living out of it, and you can actually make a living out of it by being mediocre at the game, in my opinion. has also done something that it allows people to focus on the game compared to maybe 10 years ago, where it would only be the best of the best that would actually be able to make a living of it, and then they would not have to pick up like a part-time job or something like or study on the side. That is definitely what I think is different. And then obviously I think it's just a mix of all the things that makes these young prospects come in and feel like, I would rather just play video games than go to school. I mean, it has to be something with that as well. You know, if they feel like they're good enough, if they have the talent for it, and I believe that that's also what they might think sometimes. That, you know, I can make a living if I'm good enough for playing video games. That's what I want to do, right?
Makes sense. Well, again, I could ask you a million other questions, but thanks for spending the last 25 minutes with me. It's been really informative, and it's also awesome to see you on the desk. I hope to see you doing that more. I don't know if it's public or not, so we'll just leave it there. So, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right, good like this. Thank you.
Yes, hell yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Perfect. I think we can just do an episode 2 another time.